Hello and welcome back to another podcast episode in Wild, Wise and Whole. I nearly went to say Little Girls Aren't Taught This then, my old podcast name. Um, Welcome, hello, back with a quick solo episode this week, sharing some techniques that I have done in the therapy room with clients, so extending them beyond the therapy space into this podcast because they've actually been really helpful techniques to get people like out of their head and more into their bodies, but also to interject loops or patterns that have been playing out in the nervous system. So I'm just going to share them with you, this four of them. And before I do that, I just want to firstly say thank you. My last solo episode that I done sharing the sexuality retreat. Thank you for all of you who reached out, who listened, who downloaded. I've had like a lot of feedback around it, which has been lovely. And yeah, I just feel like totally in a different space since I recorded that podcast episode, and it's been 3 weeks. I feel like I've definitely integrated the retreat a lot more. I feel like I've definitely stepped into the space of sexuality, which feels really good. And it resonated with so many of you, which yeah, just like soothes some of that vulnerability I felt about sharing it. So thank you for that. If you are interested in joining my free female sexuality community that I've created over on Telegram, then I've put the link below for you to join. And once a month, I am going to be doing online free community sessions exploring themes around female sexuality, bringing in like all of the gorgeous tools that I use, like somatic, breath, like yeah, some nice body work, and just really gently and slowly starting to bring this work into the UK because not that it's not in the UK, but I think like the depth at which I want to bring it in, just like slowly start to bring it in. So if you are interested, then you can join. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on, because I think it's just like so exciting, is that 3 spots to my female sexuality retreat next year, my somatic retreat, have already gone, which I think is wild because that was like another vulnerability I felt booking that, and I was like, oh, this it feels like the right thing, but in your head it's like, is it? And yeah, for 3 spots to be gone is just amazing. So if you're also curious in that, then I have created a full PDF to just explain like what the retreat's going to look like, what some of the workshops are going to cover, like what's included. It's a 6-night retreat next May in the UK, and it's a somatic female sexuality retreat. So it's going to be, I think, one of the most powerful things I've ever done in all of my career, to be honest. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's that. You can message me on Instagram if you want more information, the PDF, or you can send me an email. So, jumping into what I wanted to say, or what I wanted to talk about today. Okay, so 4 techniques that have just felt really good that I've kind of give clients this week for homework, you could say, or things that I've done in sessions that I think will be really beneficial to people watching this. So the first one is interjecting the loop by finding the pause, even if it's for a second. So this came from a session that I had with a client, a breathwork session. I think it was on Tuesday, and it's a client that I've been working with for some time now, but she had a pause and has recently stepped back into therapy. So there's a lot of like stuff that's been happening in the in between. And she's feeling very, very, very over capacity at the moment, very much like burnt out. She's living in a real functional freeze. So in the session, we, used the breath to get into the body, and it was a really profound session, actually, very, very embodied. And when she came out of it, I was just talking to her about like, as busy as she is, and as much as I acknowledge that she can't drop the things that are causing her to feel stressed and are adding to her overwhelm and are, making her feel like she has no capacity, I understand it's not as easy to just go, well, I'm not going to do them anymore. So I just give her this little technique and like little mini tip to try in between when I next see her, and it was that interjecting the loop by finding the pause. So if you're in a state and you know that you're really dysregulated, you know that you're shutting down, or maybe you're in a fight response or you're in a stress response, and you know that there's some like numbing going on, there's like almost like you're stuck in a pattern that just feels so automatic for you. Instead of trying to make big changes, what can actually make such a difference, because the compound effect of the small steps with your nervous system makes such a difference. I talk about this all the time with the girls in R&R. I'm constantly talking about the compound effect because it really, really matters when it comes to somatic work, probably more than you realize it matters. So the example I gave her was like, if you're on a phone call that is bringing some stuff up and you can feel yourself like being triggered and activated, like when you put the phone down, instead of automatically just getting up and then either going into like something to avoid or shutting down, like even if it's for like a split second, just take a moment to pause. So whether that's like take a breath, whether that's get a hug from your partner, whether that's just like place your hands on your knees and like rub your hands on your knees, it's less about like feeling connection to the body and more about like interjecting an automatic loop that's happening in the nervous system. So the more you can do that, even if you start for a split second, the more you can do that, the more it's going to start to help like break down that response, that automatic pattern that's in your nervous system. So I think that's a really good one to try. I think it's like, even if you get home from a busy day and you notice that you feel a bit flat or you feel a bit shut down, it's like before you then start to do all the things that you need to do, can you just really take a minute? It could be as small as a minute to just land. So again, it doesn't have to be about feeling anything in your body. If you can track your felt sense, great, amazing. If you can't and you struggle to, it's like even just taking a deep breath in and just exhale out the mouth, and then you can go about doing what you need to do. So that's a really, really nice one for nervous system patterns, automatic responses when things are going on. Um, and it also it feels realistic for people who don't feel like they can just drop everything and don't feel like it's as easy to like slow down. It's another concept that me and my friend talk about all the time, is like slow down slowly. And like this is going off on a tangent a little bit, but I think it links to this, like what I was speaking about with two of my clients this week actually, is like there's a real thing around like slow down, slow down, slow down, like rest, all of the different things. But if that feels unsafe for your nervous system, you would have heard me say this before, like it's hard to slow down and rest. So instead of going from like 0 to 100, it's like what you actually do is start to slow down slowly. So you go from like 0 to maybe like 95%, 95% to 90%. And then what you're essentially doing is allowing your body safely to like shift out of the state that it's in. So like slowly, slowly, it'll start to slow down. That will feel a lot more nourishing for your nervous system. That will feel a lot safer for your nervous system. That will actually, if you do that, if you slow down slowly, it will make it feel a little bit easier to start to slow down. So that links to what I was saying in the session with the client the other day, is like realistically we can't drop some things all of the time, but it's like where can we bring our awareness in to help us um just like honor ourselves and put ourselves first. And I did give her some like really nice tough love. I have a nice relationship with this client, and I just said to her like, you need to put yourself first, because you can only push for so long, and like your body is screaming that you're pushing too much at the moment. So it's like you don't have to cancel everything and drop everything, but like these small ways that you can start to like put yourself first, again, compound effect will add up. So that's the technique. Kind of two techniques in that: slow down slowly and interject the loop with a pause, even if it's for a second, but they kind of link together. The second one is I give this to a client this week around her relationship with body image. And I invited in like a mini homework for a minimum of 14 days. And if she wants to do it, she can do it up to 28 days. It's up to her. But I invited her to write letters to her body to deepen the relationship that, or to become aware and curious, and then essentially like help her connect to like below the surface, the story that is playing in her head around her body, to start to connect somatically to what are the feelings, emotions, and sensations underneath that, and can you get really curious about it? If you've followed me for a long time, you know when I was a self-love coach, I'd done a lot of body image work with people. I done my dissertation on body image in my master's, and I spoke about often, like treating your body like it's another person. And that was something that massively helped people. Like throughout the years, it was like a real technique that just allowed women to start to formulate, even if it's this like neutral relationship with themselves, even if it's not so much loving, it would just really help them develop more of like a neutral relationship, and also really help them implement some boundaries that felt important around like how they speak to their body, how they show up with themselves, or the time that they make, all of the things. So when we think about writing letters to the body, what it allows you to do is it allows you to again connect to your body. So step outside of yourself. So there's another technique that I'm going to share in a second, that in this technique it's about zooming out and almost like disentangling yourself from the thought that you're having or the behavior that's playing out. When you can enmesh yourself from it and like pull away from it, that gives you an opportunity to witness it, and it gives you an opportunity to witness it with curiosity. It's also quite empowering because then it starts to help you understand that it's not you. It might be a part of you that's coming up, for example, but like if you have a thought that's coming up, like it's not you, it's just a thought process. So you almost like witness it with curiosity, but you witness it almost like you're witnessing someone in front of you do something or say something. And I think that can really help put some distance between, especially around body image, if there's like shame or judgment, or, there's like complexities around your weight and, your self-image and stuff like that. This is obviously something that may require deeper work, but I think this long-term client that I'm working with, why I invited her to step into writing letters for a minimum of 14 days is because for me it felt more like in that moment around, can she show up in a devotional practice to herself? So even though at the moment she doesn't necessarily feel good about her body, it's like, can you still show up from a space of devotion and knowing that you deserve, even if it's 5 minutes, to write that letter to your body? So again, you create this consistency. So like the layer below the body image is like actually showing up for yourself, which I think makes a huge difference anyway when we think about self-love, when we think about building a connection with your body, when we think about presence, when we think about, just giving ourselves time and space like we give to everybody else. Um, I think just committing to something for a set period of time, but without it being goal orientated. So like it becomes an intention, and the space at which you can show up for yourself can be as little as 5 minutes, or it could be as long as an hour. It completely depends. So it's less about the time and what you're doing, and just more about stepping into the the knowing that you deserve the time and space. So again, you start to see how like underneath that one practice that you can do, there's so much going on there in terms of like relationship with self and yeah, like self-love. So the letters are written, and I think you could do this really nicely. Like you write them to your body, so dear body. And I invited her to keep track and felt sense as she's writing. So noticing what she feels in her body. And, if she's writing something that feels like it might provoke an emotion, so instead of staying in the mind and the story, keep checking back in with what are you noticing when you're writing that, because that's the material at which then you can explore somatically, and it'll help like move through some of this body image stuff somatically. So that would be the invitation if you do decide to write these letters, is to, yeah, really use it as an invitation to get curious, really use it as an invitation to start to connect to your body in a way that allows you to step outside of the almost like the enmeshment that's being like the closeness of it is the word I was looking for, sorry. It allows you to start to process and move through some of this stuff, or even get curious and aware of some like body image stuff. Um, without it feeling like it's you. And then that can create some distance between like the charge, the shame, all of those different things. So that was a really nice practice, I thought. One that doesn't require you to think, I need to write this. It's not like you don't need a journal and prompt. You just literally sit down and do your body and just let yourself free flow write. And when you tap into free flow writing, it's also really therapeutic because it just becomes a stream of consciousness. So you're not prompted by anything, you're not guided by anything, you're just allowing that flow to occur. And it's really nice. And then also, if you write it consistently for like, 14 to however many days you want to, it's like, as you write to your body every single day, you're forming a relationship, because imagine you're talking to somebody that you see every single day, like you're talking to a friend, or you're talking to a loved one, and it's like that is going to create a deepening of the relationship in whatever capacity, like even a deepening because there's been some vulnerability, because there's been some crosswords, because there's been some things that you notice that you mirror back, like whatever it is. But I think that's a really nice practice. And then the other technique is find your feet to ground the energy. So this again came from a trauma release breathwork session that I've done this week. And this technique is really good if you're somebody that spends a lot of time in your head or you get really anxious. So this is more, I'm not going to go into it, but it's like bioenergetical work when we start to talk about like where the charge is stored in the body and certain parts of the body that feel disconnected and there's no flow of energy, all of these different things. And one of the things that can occur, one of the character structures in bioenergetics is, and one of the ways, sorry, that we disconnect from our wholeness is we will have like points in the body where the energy just won't go to. So what this can mean is a lot of people will experience a lot of charge in the torso, and usually from like belly button upwards. And usually those people are quite anxious. So you will feel a lot of energy in the chest, you will feel a lot of energy in the tummy, you'll feel a lot of energy in the face. So the eyes flickered a lot. Your thoughts might swirl a lot. What you might also find though is that your hands feel quite cold, your feet feel quite cold, your legs feel quite disconnected, and you almost feel like there's a cut-off point in terms of where you can feel sensation. Like any sensation that comes up, there might almost be a cut-off point, or almost like there's a lack of awareness. So again, with clients that I work with, when they have this cut-off point, there can be a lack of awareness around their pelvis, their pelvic floor, their legs, their knees, their feet. And it can also create things like really being poor with balance, wobbly knees, like all of these things can just be like bioenergetical indicators that there's a disconnect from the lower half of the body, which my client has. So yes, so this is really good, going back to what this is really good for if you are somebody who really gets in your head and really feels that charge in like your chest and feels anxious a lot of the time. And it can feel quite overwhelming because when we think about the charge kind of being able to move through the body, if it's stuck just in like the upper half of the torso, it's like all of that energy, imagine like a fizzy can, is stuck in like a small proportion of the body. And one of the things that it can, or what can usually happen is it can either stay there. So like if you're feeling anxious, for example, you'll feel all the anxiety like in the torso, maybe going up into the face, and it'll just stay there stagnant because it can't move through the body. Or what you might find is it moves up the body, so the energy will come up. So again, like a lot of like energy, swirly thoughts, sorry, a lot of energy in the face, like tense jaw, like quite jittery, like feel it really prominent in the chest, all of those things. So that started to happen in the breathwork session. The anxiety started to come on because when you have a level of disconnect, obviously, and you experience anxiety, then it can create more fear because it's got nowhere to go and it feels quite uncontained and all of these different things. So one of the things that we done was working with bioenergetics to bring her into her feet. So this is different, same, but different if you've been in like a yoga class or you've done something before and it's like ground to your feet. But the thing is like if you're disconnected from your lower half of your body, it's like, yes, you can feel your feet on the floor, but actually, are you planted in your feet? Like, are your feet alive and are your feet supporting you? And then an extension of your feet is obviously your knees. So, how do your knees and your ankles feel? You know, do your legs feel like they are soft, but they support you? So there's like, when we think about the pelvic belt from the feet up into the pelvis, all of that is the root of our body. So where we ground, where we feel grounded into who we are, our stability in life. And yeah, feeling like energetically grounded in our bodies. So one of the things that we done was just to play around with awakening the feet. So we done bring in the and using breath if you do this, by the way. So this can be really good if you're feeling anxious. So tune into your breath. And just what I would say is like if you are feeling anxious when you do this, it's like slow the breath down, but don't like overly slow it down right away. So like slow down slowly, but just really start to notice your feet and bring your awareness to your feet and breathe into your body simultaneously. So we brought the weight onto the tiptoes, and because my client's balance is not the best, we done this 1 foot and then 1 foot. So you don't have to do both, but you bring your weight up onto your tiptoes and then rotate your foot over and bring your weight or just your awareness to like the toes being, rolled over, and then bring them back and put the pads of the toes down on the floor and just notice that. And then notice the side of your foot and just breathe into that. And you can just pause, I'd say minimum of like 30 seconds, because if something is in the fascia, then usually within 30 seconds to a minute, it can start to arise. So when I say stuff is in the fascia, it could be like energy that has got stuck in the feet, tension that's got stuck in the feet, and that can start to move. So for my client, when we done this, we touched a certain, I call it like a spicy spot, and that activated some anger just below the diaphragm. So it can bring up emotions, or the likelihood is it might not. If you're just doing this at home to just ground yourself, it will feel more grounding than activating if you do this. And then you bring it to the rotate to the inner edges of the foot where the arch of the foot is, and then you come onto the ball of the feet of the foot. So just really taking your time to like somatically awaken your feet and notice your feet and notice all of the edges of your feet. Breathe into that and just notice when you start to like descend into your body. So depending on how much you live in the top half of your body or what you're feeling when you try this, it might take, a couple of minutes to really start to ground you into your feet. You might notice that different sensations feel different in the points of the feet. And then also the feet have underneath the base of the foot is a really thick point of fascia. It's, I think, the thickest fascia that we have in the body. And you know that our feet are so connected to Chinese medicine. So when you bring your feet up onto your tiptoes, it's like just also stretching the fascia out at the bottom of the foot and just breathing into that and just allowing that opening to happen in the fascia in the bottom of the foot. Because when you do that, again, you're going to bring some sensation, some grounding, some aliveness, some relaxation into that space. A lot of us don't realize how tense our feet are. Um, and how like disconnected we can actually be from our feet, but they're really important. So that's a really nice way that you can start to like ground your energy, but also like bioenergetically, which is like your whole body, thinking about being in your whole body and being connected to your whole body. That's a really nice way that you can do that and just start to, yeah, like I've said, descend some of that energy and also feel a lot more grounded. So what was interesting is after we'd done this, the wobbling stopped. So she actually was able to plant into her feet a lot more, and her posture went from looking like a child to looking like a woman. So again, Character structures, there's so much that goes on that when you can read a body, you would be blown away because there's so much that can be shown to us about how we're feeling or how we're showing up or what we're in based on yeah, like how the body is holding itself. So it's really fascinating. So that's that one. And then what I would also say is it's really nice to, awaken your ankles, feel into your ankles. It's also really nice to, acknowledge your knees because again, that being part of the pelvic belt and how we ground into our lives and who we are as human beings, finding stability in the knees. So you can extend this up by playing around with really nice, soft, gentle breaths. You can soften your knees but find this sweet spot in the legs between softness and stability because that is something I use all the time with clients. I talk about this all the time in somatic work. That really nice sweet spot between, yeah, softness but also stability, so you're not collapsing but you're not rigid, so there's like a really nice in between space. And I think we can massively play around with that when it comes to our legs and find that and notice, like, do you lock your legs out, are your legs tense, is your pelvic floor up, are your glutes drawn in, and just with a couple of breaths just like soften everything and then just see if you can create like um yeah, a really nice support in the knees, the ankles, the feet. And again, this is going to be something that's going to start to descend the energy down if you're somebody that lives very much in your head. And this also is going to increase your capacity because now what you've done is created a container. So imagine when you're disconnected and it's all in your chest and your head. Imagine you're in like a little tiny cup, and then when you start to connect to your whole body and awaken your whole body, energetically, what you then do is you increase the size of your container, which means, like in session the other day, that led us into something completely different, being able to step into anger a little bit and release some anger, which felt very edgy for her because she had much more of a container to hold that energy that was coming up and she felt a lot more grounded. So really simple technique, but it can have like a really profound impact if you're someone who feels quite like, yeah, angsty or like chesty or heady or just like can feel quite um scared when you feel sensation or charge in your body. And then the last one that I want to share is I had a session with a client yesterday. This is a client I'm working with who's got complex PTSD, and she is somebody who, over the time of us working together, she come into me as what I would describe as like a scared little dog. Like you could imagine, it's a good visual to use, like a terrified little kitty cat. Her nervous system was just chronic stuck in survival mode, like threat response. And she is someone who over time we have managed to bring her nervous system out of that, which I just think is profound, profound. Um, More of a connection builder now, so her body's starting to open up. She's starting to like be able to cry, like real beautiful, beautiful impact, purposeful work. Like I'm so just like, yeah, amazed. But yesterday we were talking about intrusive thought. This is a client also, one of the symptoms that she struggles with as a result of the CPTSD is being OCD or is OCD. She has quite significant OCD and also intrusive thoughts. So now that there's a level of safety starting to build in the body, the intrusive thoughts are becoming a little bit louder, which can happen. So one of the things that we explored, and I really think this is important from a somatic lens, is I don't overly focus on the story and I don't overly focus on the thought process. So, what I would say to you is if you are somebody who can suffer with intrusive thoughts or a loud mind, a busy mind, notice the state before the story. So, try to notice what's going on in your body. Try to like soothe yourself. Try to, like, if you're feeling in a threat response, try to just settle a little bit, and then you will notice your thoughts will change. Because if we get caught up into the thought process, what we're actually only doing is looking at between the 20 to 30% of what's going on. When we bring it into the body, 70 to 80% of information is sent from body to brain. So you have the neuroception that's happening. You've heard me talk about this every zero point 0.4 milliseconds, which will then trigger perception, state, feeling, behavior, story. So before we even get to the story and the mind comes in, there's so much that's happening in the body. So yesterday, I brought this into session, and I think for you, this is a really nice technique that you can do. If you're having a busy mind, if you're having these thoughts, like state before story, remember. So there's two things that are really good to remember in this, what I've said, two little like catchy phrases: slow down slowly and state before story. And just do some work to shift your state, and then just notice with curiosity what goes on. But what we were talking about yesterday was when these intrusive thoughts come in, that's a protective mechanism. However, again, linking back to being so enmeshed in something, when it feels like it's really hard to notice what's going on and why that might be there as a protective. So as a protective factor. So because she's feeling more safe in her body, the protective factor is kicked up a notch with intrusive thought, because when the intrusive thought comes in, that triggers uncomfortability and disgust, which then makes her move, which then like disconnects it and keeps it out of presence. So we spent some time yesterday just like really exploring what's happening on a somatic level here. Like, why is this happening when we think about trauma? Like, what is going on? And what I invited her to do was like give this intrusive thought, or like this like the when that comes in, these thoughts, to give them a name. And this can also be something that's really beneficial. So like if you have thoughts that come in around like body image, for example, again, I spoke about this when I was a coach, you'd be like, name it, and it's like, oh, I don't know, Barbara's back again, like what's she doing here, like what's going on? You can tell Barbara to shut up. And what it just allows you to do is start to separate. Now, I've explained why that is important, the separation from self, because it allows awareness, it allows curiosity, it allows you to start to just create some distance in a good way, though, from those emotions that get triggered, because then it's not as dysregulating for the nervous system. So then you can really see what's going on and feel what's going on. So when we were talking yesterday about seeing intrusive thoughts as bullies, it's like get curious about what they're trying to do and literally observe that as if you're watching a bully in a playground. It's like if a bully was to pick on you in a playground, and it gets to like I don't know, a reaction out of you, or it stops you from doing something, well then that bully is going to know, right, okay, that's the Achilles heel, I'm going to keep doing that, I'm going to keep going to that kid, and I'm going to keep doing this and this, because I know it doesn't make them feel good. And that's exactly what a protective factor will do. So it's also understanding that protective factors aren't always pleasant, but they're there to protect us from what they perceive as being unsafe. And sometimes when you've been stuck in such a chronic trauma response in your body, when you start to come out of that, of course, it brings all of your like coping mechanisms and all of your protective factors online, because they don't know safety in safety, so then they are like, oh my God, this feels really unsafe, even though that makes no sense. And this is the other thing that's really important when it comes to body work. But anyway, that's the technique. So see your intrusive thoughts as bullies, get curious about what they're trying to do, and find your state before your story, and name your bully and just notice it. Just see if you can, linking back to the first one, if an intrusive thought comes in, or your mind is really loud, even if for a split second you can interject the loop before you get up and you move, or you avoid what you're feeling, or you avoid what you're hearing in your mind. It's like, take a moment to just notice what's going on, as if you're watching something unfold on a playground. And then it's like, okay, so this is what it's trying to get me to do. Because the more awareness that you bring to protective factors, the more power you start to get back into, autonomy is the right word, not power, but the more autonomy you can get to really which will really help you be able to work with these protective parts. So it's not about shaming these protective parts, it's about getting curious and being able to work with them and helping them understand that they don't need to be there as prominent as they have been, right? So that is, yes, so they are the little techniques that I've done this week inside the therapy room. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. I hope you try some. If you do, let me know if any stands out for you. Um, and just have fun exploring, and I shall see you on the other side. Goodbye.